Oh. Oh, I already started going. Can y'all hear us? Claire, can you hear us? I can see you now. Hear us? Okay, yeah, let's see. We called the roll, we said we saw Claire, so we saw you. We checked you off there. But we were on mute accidentally. Who else did we miss that was online? I don't think we missed anybody online. In the room, we have Keith Griffey from Bullock County. We have Mayor Tonini and Bernie Bowling from St. Matthews. We have Nick Creevy from Floyd County on the line. Let's see, so we'll continue with the roll call. Moving on to NDOT. Kathy's here. I know she's here. I see her there. So Kathy's here. I hope they can hear us.
Yeah, Kathy's here. Sorry.
There you are. I thought I saw you, and I know I saw your name. Richland County League of Cities. I don't see the mayor here. KYTC.
Pseudo go.
Isidro.
You're fine.
Louisville Metro Government.
Present.
Thank you for joining us. Nobody from the Airport Authority, I don't believe. How about Oldham County? I know that's one. Jim Martin. Hello, Jim. Thank you for joining us. Town of Clarksville.
Kevin's here.
Hi, Kevin. Thanks for joining us. Tark.
I'm here.
Hi, Carrie. Thank you for joining us. And let's see. I think we missed Clark County. I see Brian. Hi, Brian.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. Thanks for joining us. And I don't know, I'm trying to see if we look at the screen to see who else maybe joined us in the last minute or two. I think that's good. We certainly have a quorum. Also like to recognize those from our advisory members, which includes KYTC District 5. And I don't believe we have any of the federal highway people online. So thank you all for joining us. Thanks. Good to see everybody again after a month off. And back to you.
Okay, thank you. Next item is approval of the last meeting's minutes. If everyone's had a chance to review, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Okay.
We have a motion, a second,
Second.
and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. This is the public comment period. Do we have anybody in the room that would like to?
I think I'd like to take the meeting again.
We've got a pretty long agenda, so we're going to limit to 3 or 4 minutes.
Okay, I'll keep it short. What I'm talking about. My name's Brian McAllister. I live on Pope between Frankfurt and Payne. And I bet $1 that there's no one in this room that hasn't been down that road this year, maybe this week. I don't know. It's crowded. I think I figured out there's been about 12 million cars go down my street since I've been working on this about 10 years. I guess I'm finally maybe starting to get a little traction. Melwood, if Melwood were 2-way now and someone proposed closing it and pushing all its traffic or making it 1-way and pushing all its traffic on the Story and the Pope, I think that, you know, the citizens would not stand for it. And they just don't see that it's already been done and they shouldn't be standing for it now. It should be turned around and be made 2-way. It's I guess an analogy, try and keep it short. It's like a 100-amp circuit being pushed through speaker wire. It's sparking, and when a big heavy cable has been run and it's there, all somebody needs to do is flick the switch. And it's the ramp at Melwood Avenue, the exit ramp. That's 2,500 cars a day is what the count is on that ramp. It shouldn't be that hard to make it so that one lane of Melwood Avenue can go left through the I-64 interchange. It just shouldn't be that difficult to do a study and move a few cars the other direction. I'll leave it at that. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for your comment.
We did not receive any prior to the meeting by email, and I'm not seeing anything in the Q&A if anyone wants someone.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Public involvement report.
Yes, we'll get to that. All right, get to that real quick here. We'll look through, this is actually gonna cover August and September. Let's see, first month, this is our website analytics. We did see a really big jump in numbers in August. I'm not really sure why, but numbers were really actually pretty good for our main page and our tip and our MTP. And then in September, we saw them kind of return back to our more normal numbers that we saw there with 370, 353 for the tip page and 92 visitors for the MTP page. Social media analytics. In August, again, good solid numbers, 1,300, over 1,300 impressions on Facebook, 1,400 for Twitter. Instagram saw 247, those are all pretty solid. We did see a good jump in numbers on Twitter in the month of September, so we're hoping that momentum stays. September and staying pretty solid for Facebook and Instagram. And then we have our public comment opportunities. Moving forward to the tip and the MTP. We sent out 2 different mail campaigns for over 1,700 subscribers. On average, we had 452 opens and 46 link clicks, so those are pretty good. We did our paid advertising, over almost 9,000 impressions, 610 engagements. In all, we had 27 comments, 17 project upvotes, and we held a virtual public meeting on the 2nd. Had a few people in for that. We didn't come away with any questions or comments. And then we also sent out information flyers to our MPO libraries, newsletters, chambers, newsletters, as well as our. I'm not. Oh shoot, it's up there.
Hang on just a second.
Apologize for that.
Make sure
It wasn't
folks
sharing.
online can see the screen.
Yeah, I didn't realize it wasn't sharing.
Cause he's got some fancy slide transfers, I can tell you that. Y'all are really missing out.
Apologize for that. For the folks online. Anyway, so, I cherry picked a few of the comments that we got from this, just because we got so many, we had some questions as well. For the 21-28 Charleston project, someone asked if there was a plan to extend the multi-use path that's already planned there further south near downtown. They talked about how there's just more people downtown and there's not one there. The South Hubbard's Lane, several of the commenters on there want to see protected bike lanes versus just a stripe, paying lines. And then the on-ramps, obviously part of that I-65 study, commenters at the Arthur Street, they want to see the speeds reduced there. They're a little concerned that making those changes is actually going to increase some speeds in that area. The I-65 northbound Brook ramp, they were against the widening of that ramp. But they were in favor, largely in favor for the Woodbine Preston. And then we also did receive a complaint about the comment map that we use. There's a restriction on the characters that people are allowed to make. Unfortunately, that's an Esri thing that we use, so we don't have control over that. But I just wanted to throw that out there in case that person's out in cyberspace listening. Events, we attended California Day, Russell Place of Promise. We did some neighborhood canvassing around there. That was really good. Event, we were able to get around to about, I don't know, maybe 1,500 neighborhoods or houses around the neighborhood, pass out flyers, get things out to them. We attended the St. Matthews Business Expo as well as Cyclovia. A couple of comments that we got from some of their events. Somebody talked about needing attention in the Bells Lane area on Highway 264. And then they also like to see the city employ more workers for all departments for city services. And then, I've got a quick video, 30-second comment from somebody that was made at California Day. And I want to make sure that it gets played real quick, because I thought it was very interesting. Just wanted to say.
Like on Hale, 17th and Hale, right across from Mo's. Children are trying to go across the street. Adults are trying to go across the street. Our seniors in wheelchairs. There is no traffic light. There is nothing to deter traffic from going 1,000 miles an hour. People have to stand and wait 5 or 10 minutes in a snow line to get across the street because of the traffic. Because the light is at 15th Street, there's nothing else to slow traffic on that artery till they get to 18th Street where the next light is. So we would appreciate if you would come out and please give us some safety.
So. Yeah, that was at 17th and Hale. That, I'll take any questions if anybody has any, but that wraps up my report for this month.
I have a question.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at Twitter now, I confess to being behind. Would you attribute this increase in impressions? Like, what did you post about that was?
I don't know. That's, it's so weird. Twitter, we saw such a drop. The last couple of months, just due to, I think, people just not going to that platform. And so we don't really change much. I mean, from our perspective, I basically post what I post on Facebook. So I don't know what prompted all that month, but we're hoping that momentum sticks. Because Twitter was always a very good platform for us until about 4 or 5 months ago, and then it just fell off.
I mean, yeah, it looks good. I just don't see anything like controversial that would have like, yeah.
No, there really wasn't. I mean, there was a couple of things. Obviously, we had the beginning of Amendment 4, so that may have prompted a little bit toward the end of September. That opened up the public comment period there, and we were posting about that. It just seemed to be more posts on there. Suddenly got more attention.
Looks like Claire has an opinion on what it might be.
I think it has to be the Main Street ribbon cutting in New Albany. It's such a great project. That had to have been what it was.
Definitely.
All right. Any other questions?
How'd you do the curtain? That was very cool.
Oh, yeah, it's just transition. Yeah.
You gotta learn how to do that.
Yeah.
That was really cool.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 5, amendment 4 to Kentuckiana 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan. Chris.
Thank you. I have a presentation for y'all, just a short one for this item. So, backing off what Greg was talking about, we recently did amendment 4, and I'll be to the MCP. So the tip, this one is going to be an action item. Our schedule in brief, our project applications were due back in August on the 24th. We had our interagency consultant meeting on September 15th. Public comments ran from September 11th to October 11th. Recently, we had the TTCC. Brady did the presentation meeting and some comments to speaking approved today. This one does include some non-exempt projects, so there will be a thorough review period after we do approval for. Okay, I have the full listing in the meeting kit. It's got 16 projects. Just made a quick little summary here though. So for Floyd County, they're making Charlestown Road multi-use trail into a 2-phase project. We have a correction to the total project cost of the ID 3215. We are reconstructing the family relationship of the Hubbard Lane projects to have a parent with a north and south child for Louisville Metro. And we've got a new TARP project that will be replacing the diesel vehicles with battery electric buses. Then in addition to those, we have some KYTC projects. We are updating the name and description to 3125. We're gonna add 446 to the TIF. It's already in the MCP. That was just an omission error. And then we're gonna be adding 6 new ramp projects. And that's all that I have for you all. Does anyone have any questions on Amendment 4? Okay. So I think it's 2 actions.
Typically, it's gonna be the MTP, and then we'll do the tip second.
Okay, we're doing the first one,
The Connecting Kentucky and 2050 and MTP.
do we have?
Motion.
Second,
Second.
motion and a second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Okay, the second one would be the Transportation Improvement Program.
Yes.
I have a motion,
Motion.
second. Have a motion and a second, all in favor? No. Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Chris.
Great.
And you're back up again for number 6.
Yes. For something different. Next item is gonna be the proposed update to the metropolitan planning area, and I'm also gonna give you all a little status update on the Augusta urban area boundary. TTCC in this presentation. Technical committee. Okay, so really quick, why are we doing another update on this? Some changes have been made to the smooth boundary draft. Most notably, we separated the Charlestown, the Greenwich, and Mount Washington urban areas from the Louisville, Jefferson County urban area, and we have now created 4 smooth boundaries. And then also based on the 2020 census defined urban area boundary, we have created an updated draft to our metropolitan planning area. And that is going to be an action item at the end of the presentation. Here's a timeline of some of the activities that we've gone through. Thanks again for everyone that participated in this process. Yeah. So first I'm gonna do a little update on the smooth boundaries. As a reminder, current metropolitan planning area includes 4 jagged boundaries or census defined area boundaries shown here. The census defined area boundaries must be contained within the FHWA adjusted smooth boundaries. So all of our new submission includes these 4 areas. That's the probably biggest requirement for that. The first submission is shown here. We submitted that one with 1 unified smooth boundary within the MPA. That would have included the yellow area plus the green and all of the colored areas. That was our initial submission. On May 25th, TPC approved our plans to draft these. We had a series of meetings in the local counties to come up with this plan. On June 22nd, we submitted that. Yet later we did learn that there was something we should have done. We should have submitted 4 instead of 1 large one. So we essentially submitted the same region, the same territory. We didn't take anything out. We just divided it so that we have 4 at this point. In other words, there wasn't really a change to the overall urban area. Each smooth boundary has to be contained within the jagged, or each jagged boundary has to be contained within the smooth boundary, and whenever possible, we use the city limits as a determining factor where we could make divisions. We reached out to the local officials in Clark, Oldham, and Bullitt and created, oh, let me go back to that. We created the 4 separate shape files that way. So it might be a little hard to tell with this map, but the dark green is the census defined. The light green is the rest of the smooth boundary for the Louisville, Jefferson County. And the other colors are accordingly with those regions. If anyone has any questions about this later, please get with me. And we did include some PDFs in the meeting packet as well, if you want to take a closer look. So. The next steps are state DOTs have received the KIPTA recommendations. We've already heard back from NYTC. There might be some changes. We are discussing some of our recommendations and justifying why we made those choices, the local perspective. So in the end, we'll be able to get back with you with the final decision after they've gone through the state and federal highway departments. Now, our action item is our update to the metropolitan planning area. And the prerequisite for this is that it has to contain the entirety of the census defined urban area, which is shown in blue in this image. The only change that we are recommending to this is the removal of the small portion of Harrison County that was recently had. This is also included in the package. Put this map in here again to demonstrate that the reason why we had that portion of Harrison County was because last time it was included in the census defined area. And so we had to include it. If you look to basically the middle western side of this map, there's Floyd County and that small piece of Harrison County in red. Those areas are not in the 2020 census defined area. That is why we figured let's take it out. It's basically 1 or 2 census blocks that are in there.
Right there is where that red extended into Harrison County previously.
Yeah.
You can see the mouse.
So our proposal is to keep everything the same besides that little chunk.
That's right. That's right. And you may ask about Shelby County, right? And Shelby County portion shrunk there, but there is, just like there used to be a tiny fraction of a square mile in Harrison, that in the prior 2 decades, in the 2020 census, there is 1 census block in Shelby County that's still in the local urbanized area. So therefore, Shelby County will remain, that small portion of Shelby County is proposed to remain.
I think that's all I have to say about that, unless anyone has any questions. But we are looking for action to approve this.
I know we asked this when we were sitting around the table looking at the boundaries, but I wanted to confirm, and I didn't do it at the TTCC. These boundaries and this approval doesn't really affect funding or the way we essentially put projects into the MTP and the TIP. Is that correct still? Because I know at one point there was, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, we didn't anticipate.
So the smooth boundary shouldn't impact that at all. It's probably more of a functional classification thing, you know, with whether the urban collector road might be designed in the same way as the rural collector road, for example. The MPA would determine eligibility for KIPTA dedicated funded projects that get paid for through KIPTA dedicated funds. That's correct. So there is a slight nuance to the 2 things. One matters in one way, the other matters in a perhaps more meaningful way.
But not in a significant way.
Correct. The jagged boundary, Chris termed it, that's the one that matters most, or the jagged boundaries plural. That one boundary, the Louisville area, is what we get funded based upon, given the rules of all the prior decades. The funding for this decade, I think there's two proposals on the table now, at least with the planning funds that come to fund us. One would say, the funding is based on your largest urbanized area. That's the previous rules, let's say, or the previous methods. The other one that's been proposed is to base that on the population of all of the urban areas within your MPA. Okay, so that would seem to be a nice win for us, right? A win meaning more population, because that would also be consistent with prior decades in that it would include the folks in the LaGrange urban area and the Mount Washington urban area. So we wouldn't lose them when it comes down to dollars and cents. So that's something that we will hear from at least KYTC on probably in the next few weeks or month or so. So thank you. Hope that answers your question.
Any other questions?
I
Okay.
had a question. I just wanted to make sure that I understood, and I just want to confirm this, that there are portions of Jefferson County on the east and to the south that are not considered urbanized area under the parlance of USDOT, but there are portions of Oldham County, Bullitt County, Clark and Floyd that are part of the urbanized area as defined by USDOT. That's what the blue is on the proposed. All the blue is what's considered urbanized area. And then additionally, LaGrange and Mount Washington are now sort of their own category of somewhere in between rural and urbanized. I may not be saying that right, but
I think in the Census Bureau definitions and or the FHWA interpretations of some of those things they've changed some of the rules, and they think they used to have a different name for the smaller urban areas. I think they call them urban clusters or something like that. Now they're all called urban areas. They're just urban areas of different sizes. And so, there is a distinct LaGrange urban area that didn't used to exist, just like there's a distinct Mount Washington urban area that did not used to exist. Those two areas in particular used to be a part of the Louisville, Jefferson County, Kentucky, Indiana area. So, but you are correct that there are portions of Jefferson County that are rural and portions of all, not 5, but 6 counties. There's like one census block in Shelby County. So Jefferson, Bullitt, Oldham, Clark, Floyd, and a tiny piece of Shelby County that are urban, or more urban than portions of Jefferson County, which would surprise some, perhaps.
right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
And it's strictly based on the density of population. So portions of Jefferson County don't have it, but those portions of the other counties, they do.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, we need a motion to accept your urbanized boundary adjustments.
Well,
Specifically, it's the metropolitan planning area.
right. The adjustments, we got that approved back in May, but we just had to update it.
Okay, the updated.
Yeah, so what we're seeking right now is the metropolitan planning area update. That's the portion where we are taking Harrison County out, or at least recommending.
Okay, correct. So do we have a motion? So we do. Second. And a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Next item is the quarterly report, a recap from the meetings of Indiana and Kentucky. Great.
You buckle up for this one. We got 4, let's see if this is any item. We will go through it as 15 minutes as we can. So September 13th, we had our Kentucky biannual dedicated
funding program meeting, and then the next week, on the 19th, we had the same meeting that's on a quarterly basis for Indiana project sponsor. We had the typical process for these meetings. We looked at the progress reports that were submitted and updated the tracking sheet accordingly to the updates for these MPO projects. Some of this is where the opportunity was provided for sponsors to share if their projects were on schedule, if they needed phase shifts, if there were potential cost increases that were needed. And we reviewed the feasibility of the current project schedules. And we also reviewed some potential money from NDOT that comes from the August redistribution process that may be able to go to the Riverside Drive project. The details of that are still in the works. We'll have more information going forward, but something to be aware of the DPM side. We also did a live online survey for those who participated in the meeting to get some initial preliminary feedback on the project management guidebook that we are looking to start simply updating. The PNG was originally adopted in 2021. And based on the discussion of the projects that may need some shifts based on the feasibility of their current project schedule, we had another meeting on October 5th over Zoom to determine best accommodate some of these potential issues with a couple of projects. And so you show the results of that 5th meeting, that secondary discussion here with you. So Progress Way roadway improvement project with ID 3018, based on group discussion, was proposed to shift the right-of-way phase from fiscal year 24 to fiscal year 25, shift the utilities phase from fiscal year 25 to fiscal year 27, and shift construction phase from fiscal year 26 to fiscal year 27. So no funding increases, but just shifting the fiscal years for these phases for Progress Way. And we also have stands for Avenue Streetscape Improvements with ID 3019, where there's a 25 preliminary engineering phase that's going to stay the same. Then we have a 26 right-of-way phase that's shifting to fiscal year 27, and a fiscal year 27 construction phase that's shifting to fiscal year 29. Once again, the fundamentals this time are staying the same for the projects, shifting. Year 12. And then the last one is a big increase to the Charlestown Road Complete Streets Multi-Use Trail Phase 2 project, which was just a part of Amendment 4 that Chris just presented to you. So this is a part of the project where Charlestown Road Complete Street project split into two, a Phase 1 and Phase 2. Phase 2 didn't have any funding attached to it as of Amendment. And so this would be a proposal to add that $1.4 million of federal of CMAQ funds to this newly reorganized Phase 2. This little spreadsheet just kind of shows what these changes mean to the budget. Here, if you look at this row here, you have the unprogrammed balance that is current without any changes. This is what our unprogrammed balance looks like in the future. The parentheses meaning that amount of money is yet to be programmed. So it could be spent. It's not yet programmed or assigned to something. With the changes, you would have that row below it where you have those numbers of unprogrammed funds increase a little bit because of the shifting, but based on our discussion at the meetings, that was the best outcome to minimize the unprogrammed balance, and as well as prioritizing regional important regional areas. So with that, unless there's any questions. the request for action to approve the cost, project cost increases, project cost increase and the two-phase shift for the aircraft.
Okay, do I hear a motion? Second,
Second.
we have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
There.
Go on to Kentucky. Here, we had our Kentucky meeting, similar process, had the Barbara reports, updated the tracking sheet, received a shift requests and cost requests. And we had a very similar online survey process with project management guidebook. So we had that online survey take place in both states meetings as well. There's been a total of 31 project phases that phase shifts that have been requested. Most of them are moving from fiscal year 23 to 24. There's a few that are 24 to 25 or 25 to 26, but the majority of these phase shifts requested are just moving to the next fiscal year. And most of them don't require PPC action, but there's a couple we'll talk about just in that are special cases. As a summary for where we are at the end of fiscal year 23, ended up with a carryover balance of a little bit over $115 million. That is an improvement over last year's end of fiscal year 22 STBG carryover balance. These are specifically STBG dollars I'm talking about here. So we cut into the balance by $2.5 million, which is good, but we also only programmed 25% of, or we only obligated 25% of the STBG MPO projects that we had hoped to obligate this in fiscal year 23. So that's not quite as good. Looking to fiscal year 24, we have $134 million of funds available. We currently have a little over $87 million program. So the goal by the end of fiscal year 24 is to have that carryover balance cut down to just over $47 million, assuming everything that is currently programmed is obligated on time this year. So that's the goal. And I mentioned those 4 projects that are slightly special cases, I guess, as opposed to normal phase shifts. So I'm going to talk about those right here. In the project management guidebook, it states, as a quote from it, the initial design phase of the project must be obligated in the year in which it was programmed in the TIP. And so these are 4 projects that had initial phases that need a shift to fiscal year 24. But the caveat that makes these different from this particular P&G rule is they are new projects that were not put into the TIP until I believe May. Around May is when we have the new first approvals of the new TIP. And so they didn't have the full year period to actually obligate these new design phases. And so it was the recommendation of TTCC and staff to go ahead and approve these design shifts for these phases. We request TTC action on that.
Okay, do I hear a motion to accept the shifts? Second.
Second.
I have a motion, a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
One other We also discussed the phase shift status of projects, just as a reminder of what the rules are in the park management guidebook. While a project is under design, the sponsor can shift the right-of-way, utilities, and construction phase 2 times. If the sponsor needs to shift a 3rd time, they must request an exception to do that. And if a phase of a project, a right-of-way utility construction phase, requires a 4th shift after initial design obligation, but before the obligation of the next phase, then all future program NPO dedicated funds will be removed from the tip and we'll have to recompete for the next call for projects. So that's just pulled straight from the project management guidebook. This is a summary chart of projects that have shifted. It's kind of hard to see it so much, but all the ones in black are projects that have shifted, have been approved shifts twice for that particular phase. And so the next shift would require an exception. And then there's 2 blue projects that have shifted 3 times and were granted a phase shift exception. Those are both University of Louisville projects. But there are 4 projects that have been granted either 3 or 4 phase shifts, but they did not go through the exception process according to the PMG. They slipped through the cracks, I guess you could say. And so the question would be for TPC is how to move forward with that. The recommendation from staff and also recommendation from the TTCC is for these 4 projects to view them as though they have already received a phase shift exception. And so for these 4 projects, if these 4 phases associated with them were to shift an additional time, it would be their 4th shift. It would hit that mark of any remaining funds having to be removed from the TIP and then recompete for the next fall. And so like TBC action on that kind of that interpretation of how to move forward with those 4 project phases and 4 projects.
Any comments or questions? Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second? Motion to second. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
This is the last section here. Okay, so this next section, we're going to be talking about Kentucky cost increase requests. And so for context for that, this is the current status of the CRP MPO balance. You see in fiscal year 24, there's $0, meaning that it's fully programmed. There is no money in 2024 to give to a CRP phase in 2024. But there is money available in 25, 26, and 27. The CRP has no cost increase reserve in the way that the STBG MPO funding source has, but there are unprogrammed dollars that could be put to project potentially. Now, if we look at the STBG MPO cost increase reserve, as an update for where we are, that initial reserve in fiscal year 23 was $4.6 million. There were almost $3.9 million approved for cost increases in fiscal year 23, which means that $724,000 number is what carries over to the fiscal year 24 initial cost increase reserve. And so that leaves us with, for fiscal year 24, we have just over $5.4 million to give to projects. We've already done that for a few projects. We see the Get to ID 163, that's a Louisville Metro project that was granted $2 million. Then the next 2 projects there, 2225 and 2585, are University of Louisville projects that were granted some cost increases. And then Get to ID 2479, that is a Mountain Washington project that was granted the $958,000. And so with all that, that leaves us with the $2,052,520 left for STBG MPO cost increases in the reserve for the rest of fiscal year 24 phases. So with that context, these are the projects that were discussed at some level at TTCC. These are all Louisville Metro projects that they were requesting in some manner for cost increase. So and before I state them, there's a couple of the green ones that the numbers changed slightly, and I'll show that in the next slide. But these are the numbers that were shown to TTCC. So the first one is Stony Brook Drive sidewalk connector, the construction phase for 2024. And it is an STBG project, and they're asking for an increase of dollars. It's pretty straightforward for that one. The second one, the Pond Creek Jefferson Memorial Forest project, they're asking for a additional design phase that would cost $135,000 federal, plus then you have the MAC and everything. But as far as MPO dedicated dollars, $135 MPO dedicated. This project, currently, all the current phases are CRP phases. And so it would be unusual, according to the PMG, to provide STBG MPO cost increase reserve dollars to a current CRP project. However, for this project, up until I think a few months ago, to be accurate, or within the year, within or the last few years, this has always been an STBG project. So all of the previous funds before this TIP were STBG funds. It also provides an opportunity to spend money in 2024. And so for those reasons, the TTCC did recommend approval for that project phase, although it is a little abnormal. And then the third one, the Dixie Highway Streetscape construction phase 2026, is requesting some dollar amounts for CRP dollars. So this is not coming from the STBG cost increase reserve. This is just programming currently unprogrammed CRP dollars. The only issue with that one that some people brought up at TTCC is that it is a 2026 phase. And so we're programming years in the future. And essentially a cost increase for that project phase years in the future when we're not there yet. But despite that, that was also recommended approval for that. So the top three recommended approval. This fourth one, the Cooper Chapel Road Phase 3 construction phase, was denied by ETCC. They asked in this one for $3.2 million of STBG NPO cost increase reserve for 2025. The thought process here was also, this is just a large amount of money and maybe a little bit too soon to make a call on that in terms of the TTCC's view. Perhaps if this same cost increase request were brought forth to them like the same time next year, that might be a better time to grant that cost increase. So that was the discussion at TTCC, and that one was denied. And then these last four were requests for TA funds, of which there are none available. And so they were actually withdrawn and they weren't ever voted on or discussed. And KIPTA is working with Louisville Metro to try to determine some potential alternative for some of those projects. So the three that we want to talk to you about today are these three that were approved by DTCC. You notice that the numbers here are slightly different than the ones that I just showed you and the ones that are in your packet. The difference is for Stony Brook Drive, there is an additional $39,000 asked for STBG MPO cost increase reserve funds. But for Dixie Highway, there's $39,000 less asked for CRP funds. And so those were just some changes that were made in the meantime between TTCC discussion and after we sent packets out last week as well. So these are the numbers that you'd be voting on today that is being requested of TPC. And also, if all of these were approved, these are the numbers of what it would look like for the balance. So for fiscal year 24, the STBG MPO cost increase reserve would go from that $2 million number I showed you earlier down to 1.655 million for the rest of fiscal year 24. So there would be that amount of money for other project increases for 24 phases if necessary. And then you see the CRP unprogrammed balance remaining. There will still be over $1 million left in 26 and be over $700,000 left in 27. So there is room in the CRP balance to accommodate the $121,000 if so moved by this committee. With that, I would request TPC action on these 3 Kentucky cost increase requests.
Is there any questions, comments, discussion?
Yeah, I'm interested to learn more. I mean, by the way, thank you, because this looks like tremendous work. What are best practices on when to request a cost increase? Because it seems like maybe there's a balance. And so I'm interested to learn more.
So our project management guidebook does not say you can't request a cost increase now for any year in the tip. In fact, it just doesn't say, probably doesn't say anything in that neighborhood of things. I don't believe it does anyway. But I think it was the view of the working group and or the TTCC that now, you know, it's also, while perhaps we could do that, it might be best that we don't do that. So it's not a first come, first serve. First one there gets it. Okay. And so, and I'd say, as Brady brought up, especially at that $3.2 million number, right? If that was a tenth of that $320,000 number, I don't know what the TTCC would have said, but I think it's more comfortable. It would be more peace of mind to say, okay, we still would have whatever the number would have been on our cost reserve for this year and next. I guess it's next year's reserve that matters too. So it's a balance, and so I think that's part of what we need to probably update as what would be approved by this committee at some point in the future. That is an update to that guidebook to say, hey, we didn't envision this being an issue in the last time, but we need to make some rules because the rules need to be the rules, and we see where maybe it's not a blind spot, but maybe just as a practical matter with this inflationary era that we're in. That these cost increases are going to be larger and more numerous, and we need to be ready for that. We need to be ready to be fair about that. And I think that's my main thing is what's fair. Is it fair to give 2/3 of what we would expect to be our cost increase reserve next year to a project that is asking for it now when we know that there's going to be some others coming down the line closer to the beginning of that year? And as Brady mentioned, there's nothing, there's no reason why that project shouldn't be brought back in 6 months or 12 months to say, hey, it's time. We still need it. And at that time, there probably would be others we would imagine for 25. So, what's the best practice? Oh, that's a good one. I mean, it's up for us to decide the rules. It's us. It's not anybody else on these things. It's up to this TPC to decide the rules that we play by. Because I think both states would allow us the flexibility in that case to manage those programs if we see fit.
I see. So it is a balance of not allowing first come, first serve to kind of gobble dollars that then we still are so many years out on. And at the same time, if you're managing a project, imagine if once you know that you're going to have, an overage, that you go ahead and get cubes. I see.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and the other part of that too is what we're seeing through this presentation is that cost increase reserve. That's a godsend to some of these projects. It's glad we're having it, right? Glad somebody thought about that a few years ago before there was inflation. We don't have it for the CRP program because that's brand new, and for the same reason we've never had it for the TA program because the dollar amounts are such, it's a fraction of the dollar amounts, 10% of them, let's say. So the flexibility is not there, and so it probably doesn't make sense to set aside small dollar amounts of a small dollar. We do have, we could, if those are the rules we want to create, this body, and we could. But we don't, at least in years gone by, we haven't thought that's a great idea. Again, I hate to always compare, but remember in Indiana, there's zero carryover balance. That number is 0% in all the programs. And so it's a Kentucky specific thing for sure. In this room it is.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions?
It looks like Mayor Johnson for Chapley has a question.
Yes, I have a question. Could you explain to me the ones that they withdrew, why those was withdrawn to get, played?
Sure, so the 4 projects that were withdrawn, they were requesting TA funds, as Andy mentioned, the TA funds don't have a cost increase reserve themselves, and by PMG rules, they don't have access to the FPBG cost increase reserve. And so essentially, there was a request for funds for those projects, but there isn't any available right now. There is no funds to give that are TA.
Okay, so it could come back up where they can get additional funding and get those, the requests fulfilled.
Yes, it's possible. And in fact, in the past several days, KIPA staff been working with Louisville Metro staff on getting these projects closer to their respective finish lines by perhaps moving some money around, borrow from one to afford another type thing. So
Okay,
stay tuned on those. Those projects are not, the projects are certainly not withdrawn. In fact, those priorities, based on what we're hearing from Louisville Metro staff, are of a really high priority to get constructed really soon.
okay, thank you so much.
Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, entertain a motion.
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I think we have, okay, that was. All right, that's 4 items. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to number 8, administrative modification of the 23-26 transportation improvement program. Chris is back up.
This one is not an action, but I do have a presentation. With us, we have had a lot of modifications. Some of them, y'all received notification quite a while back, but I have not gotten to present them to the group yet. So we've got administrative modification 4, which was processed on September 18th. We've got number 5, which went on October 3rd, and still figuring out the final details we have at month 6. Some of those details were contingent on what you all just approved. Those are all in administrative modification 6, or at least most of those. So let's see. And again, like I said, those earlier ones, the TPC and state DOTs were notified by the states. But I do want to give you a little summary, a couple of slides on those. These first 2 were in admin mod. We had Washington's historic multi-use trail that got an update to the tip. Rose, Green Main Street. We were adding that phase, taking the funding. The other ones on this table were all in White County's bridge inspections that updated tip funding, River Road. We had a TARC project, non-fixed route ADA paratransit service, and a handful of NDOT projects with updates to the tip funding, and then we needed to make a correction to the tip. For item month 6, we sent the link and this QR code in the meeting packet But here it is, if anyone wants to look again, yeah. All you have to do is scan the code and it'll pop up. If anyone did look at the draft that was posted previously, I made a few changes yesterday, so what's currently on this link is a little bit different than what it was on the 19th. Mainly I took out those TA jumps, and it's worth noting that Charlestown Road Phase 2, that one is gonna have to wait until the next admin mod next month, presumably, because that's in Amendment 4. So we couldn't make the modification before Amendment 4 has gotten its final federal approval on that one, but that one did get approval on the last measure, so we'll go ahead and process that as soon as we can. If anyone has any questions, I do encourage you all to check if you have project changes on this list. I think there's 35 projects still on the list, so that's probably most of you. Make sure I've got it the way you want it. Just do a quick once over within the next few days. I want to thank everybody for doing the project application. Those are really important to us, and also using our updated project applications. Brady and some other staff worked pretty hard with this. Besides that, although Self or Brady may know what project changes you're making, those applications are important to us because like back in our GIS team, and so Gina, she is working on the database to keep the updates, and they go to the applications for that information as well. So thank you all for taking the time. And let me know if I have something wrong in this draft. I'll fix it up before I make the submission.
Hey, Andy, this is Kathy. When is that Charlestown Road project scheduled to go to letting? Do you know? The sidewalks?
Is Nick still on here? Nick probably knows better than any of us. Nick, did you hear Kathy?
Yeah, I'm on. I think we're looking to try to get it early next year. I think Don was saying January.
Okay, because if you're waiting till a November tip amendment to get that taken care of, then.
Oh, no, for that, so for the phase 2 is not until 26.
Oh, okay.
So remember, Kathy, phase 2 was the part that was broken off, and we're gonna try to figure out a way to fund that probably in the next couple of years. While phase 1 was the priority section, a little bit toward the New Albany side there of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure I was on the wrong phase. All right, thank you.
We'll go right on to Indiana year-end report.
Right, I don't have a ton to say here, and I don't have a presentation. So every year, after each fiscal year, MPOs are required to develop a list of projects, for those that don't know, called the ALAP for short. The ALAP is going to include the project information for all of the federally funded phases of the preceding fiscal year. Information like project IDs, federal funds requested or programmed, the amount obligated, and paid. The 2023 Indiana fiscal year was July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2023. However, the Kentucky fiscal year was October 1st of 2022 to September 30th, 2023. So due to the timing, KIPTA is able to review and work with INDOT on the Indiana AWAC information ahead of the Kentucky and the transit reports. We recently received a report from KYTC and we're working with TARC to complete the whole KIPTA, the whole Kentuckiana region fiscal year 23 AWAC report soon. I'm going to have more information to report to you all once we have all the sections completed. And that's
No action required.
No
Thank you,
action
Chris.
required.
Anybody have any questions, comments? Thank you. Next item is Kentucky 24 legislative priorities. Andy.
Thank you. This is going to continue the rapid fire session of this TPC meeting. Don't have a presentation either, but I wanted to get the conversation started on something that the KIPTA as a whole agency is looking to do a good job of this upcoming session with General Assembly in Frankfurt. Their meeting starts on January 2nd. It's a budget year, so there's probably lots of people that have lots of legislative priorities. I think that's fair to say. And KIPTA as a region, you all as individual LPAs, you all certainly have your own priorities. And so I wanted to start the conversation today. Perhaps we will finish it at next month's meeting, perhaps with something formal, with the form of a resolution or otherwise, if there are legislative priorities of the TPC. Okay, KIPTA as an agency has some, those are often surrounded. This year, it sounds like there's going to be a lot around a lot of the infrastructure projects, the water, wastewater projects through in our Kentucky counties, the good work that KIPTA and your all's agencies have partnered with on some of those. Some of the meals programs that our Division of Social Services do. For those that don't know, that are only here for the transportation meetings and know KIPTA as a transportation agency. The largest division of KIPTA certainly isn't transportation, but rather our social service division. I think those of you that stick around for the board meeting recognize that. And so a lot of the good work that they do with some meals programs and many other programs, some of which cross over to transportation for seniors and disabled folks and others. So, so those are the type of priorities this agency has. So the transportation priorities, I'll throw this out there just for food for thought. Of course, it's going to be our SHIFT priorities, right? The projects that were boosted and sponsored in SHIFT, those will remain a project-based, legislative priority to the extent that we can lobby for those projects. Of course, we'll do that. Also, the idea of more generally making sure that this region gets its fair share from Frankfurt. That's true about all the divisions of KIPTA, making sure that the economic engine that is the KIPTA region, the Louisville region, the District 5 region, the bi-state region that is Louisville gets our fair share from Frankfurt. So, I'd like to hear if there's other priorities that you have. If you have them, you want to talk about them today, that's fine. You want to talk to them offline next month or so, that's fine. But again, probably next month at our November 30th meeting, we'll probably finalize some of those things. So, there's probably a list of things that we could talk about and have priorities. I don't know what some of them are. Some of them are a little taboo, so we probably won't talk too much about them unless somebody really wants to talk about them. But there's room probably for some local priorities, but keep in mind if you have some that you want to see from KIPTA, make hopefully they have a regional nature and a connection with your neighboring agency. That's what.
Andy, if I can, I know we started our Jim and Deputy Mayor George and yourself. We had a short meeting and we're still gathering information. We'll give you a little bit of an update, though. We had a group that went to Frankfurt and met with Chairman of Church on some road projects. Shock 44 was involved in that. And Representative Upchurch said, well, all of these, we've gone through the SHIFT process and you are aware of that. Okay, that was an opening for me. And I said, we are, however, there are some issues, that's my opinion, there are some issues with this. And he opened up that conversation and said he is willing to speak to, I told him that Oldham and Louisville Metro and ourselves have been a part of this. And we want to look and make sure that it's as fair as it can be. And he said that his first priority is making sure everything is fair. So here, hopefully in the next little bit, we'll be able to have a sit-down conversation with Chairman Upchurch just to let him know what our thoughts are on this, to make sure that we are getting, and he might come back and say, hey, y'all are getting exactly what you need. That's fine, but we will have a seat at the table.
Good. And this isn't an update about SHIFT, but it's our understanding that District 5 has promoted the priorities up to central office. It's in central office's hands now. The rest of the SHIFT will be a central office led thing. So that's good that our sponsorships and our boosts have now been they're off to Frankfurt, and we'll see how they turn out here in the next probably by the end of probably some point in December there'll be a recommended highway plan.
Or early January.
Early January, so soon, real soon. So stay tuned on that one.
Andy,
Yes, sir.
used to have express bus service out to Oldham County and other parts of the region, and that of course went away, and I know there's been a lot of change to TARC and whatnot, but I think a good subject talk about in Frankfurt is how to get additional funding or support for bringing it back. And there were, depending on the gas prices, some higher use. And obviously when gas prices came down, lower, but gas prices are back up. And so I think that's a good subject matter to bring to Frankfurt.
That was on my list of things. If nobody had anything, I was gonna throw it out there as food for thought, something like that. Something like, our freight partnership. I mean, the trucks running up and down our interstates, never been more. The KIPTA board had a resolution, as many of y'all know, probably some point last year that said, talk about tolls. I don't know if that needs to be a priority of our agency or not, but it could be, the reformulated gasoline. That's a kind of a taboo one. We pay for reformulated gasoline in this region. The rest of the state, including Northern Kentucky, if I'm not mistaken, does not pay additional at the pump for the reformulated gasoline. Yes, we are a non-attainment area for ozone, and however, I think the science says that the benefit of burning reformulated gasoline in our modern engines doesn't provide the above and beyond what it used to. And so is that still a worthwhile endeavor? I don't know. That's probably a little taboo, but it is something that our region pays that the rest of them do not. And so,
And I know we do have some Representative Huff, Representative Brancher, have been very adamant in that. I know Representative Huff has done looking at that and trying to get that. Again, going back to fairness, what's there.
Yeah. Everybody wants the air to be clean. Nobody doesn't want that. But if burning that gasoline that costs more doesn't make the air if it has the same impact as the gasoline that we buy even in southern Bullitt County, just outside of what was the old Montana area, and certainly in the surrounding counties where gas is regularly significantly cheaper. So it's not a tax, but it feels like one. It's a hidden. So again, I do not want to make that a priority unless this body wants to make it a priority. And there's probably some that do, and perhaps some that do not. But if you have any priorities, we can talk about them right here. Or let's keep the conversation going, and then at our November meeting, we'll probably put them on paper to send up the chain. So that's all I had. Unless anybody else has anything.
Do you have anything else? Any questions, comments? Yes, ma'am.
I would just say for folks who heard Mayor Greenberg's legislative priorities and those specifically that involved infrastructure, if you guys have suggestions or things you want us to focus on, these were obviously written pretty generally and broadly to try and gain consensus amongst electeds. But, for instance, I'm looking at $35 million of additional one-time grant funds for planning and construction and transportation, in less dense populated portions of the world. There are ideas like, please work with us in terms of what we want to see.
Anything else? Let's move along. Number 11, Indiana Transportation Excellence Award, Greg.
Yes, we had 4 nominations put in for this year's title award. It was the US 42 plane study, 155 at South Public projects, turning lanes on 44 and the East Main Street in New Albany's revitalization. So voting's been tabulated. We will announce the winner at the November 14th annual meeting, and then we will recognize the winner once again at the November 30th TPC meeting. But so we'll have that. That's something to look forward to next month. That's all.
Director's report, Andy.
All I have this month is kind of follow up on what Greg just mentioned, that the next meeting of the TPC will not be on the 4th Thursday of November. Of course, that will be Thanksgiving. So our next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, November 30th at 12:30. And I guess since we have a couple minutes, we have talked about perhaps making that a virtual meeting. That will not be That will not be a meeting where the KIPTA Board of Directors will meet immediately after, okay? And so for that reason, and perhaps others, do we prefer to do a virtual meeting? We can keep doing the hybrid. But since it's kind of right after the holiday, maybe we could do a virtual meeting. It does not matter too much to us as staff. But that's up to you because get the pulse of the room here. If we want to do it like a regular meeting, just like this one, that's fine. But we can set up a virtual meeting, or maybe it can be us and Chairman Bowling here and the rest of you all at your desks. Anybody feel strongly one way or the other? If you don't feel strongly, we'll probably announce, stay tuned on your email, but we'll probably do a virtual. We'll figure something out. If you want to come here, we'll just make it easy on everybody. Okay, and then kind of part of that conversation, of course, is a reminder that the KIPTA board meeting, there'll be a meeting here at 2 o'clock here in just a few moments. But also the November meeting is usually that special meeting where we have our annual luncheon. And so that's going to take place at November 14th at the Shelbyville Conference and Welcome Center. Okay, there will not be a TPC meeting there. Okay, usually there is, this time there's not. That's outside, despite that tiny bit of Shelby County being our metropolitan planning area, Shelbyville is not. And so our meeting will be on the 30th, just like I mentioned, our November meeting will be on the 30th. The RTC, the Regional Transportation Council, our rural counterparts that Mick leads from KIPTA staff, they will meet at 10 a.m. The board of directors will meet at 11 a.m. there at Shelbyville, and then there will be a luncheon. So you're welcome to attend the RTC, the board of directors meeting, the luncheon. The luncheon will be at 12:30 or immediately after the board meeting there in Shelbyville. So look forward to seeing everybody there and hosting everybody there. And again, that's when the kite award will be announced for the first time too. So I hope you can be there. And that's concludes me.
Thank you. And any other business come before the committee? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. We have a motion and a second, all in favor?